You have prayed the words, "Forgive us our debts 1,000 times." But Jesus was never talking about debts the way you think. Jesus revealed Khaubayn, the Aramaic secret behind the Lord's Prayer's deepest line. In the original Aramaic, the word he used was Khaubayn. And it does not mean sin, in the moral sense you are taught. It means tangled threads, knots, energetic cords that bind one soul to another long after the offense is forgotten. What if every grudge you carry is not a mark against someone's character, but a literal knot still tied around your own chest? By the end of this video, you will understand why Jesus framed forgiveness not as kindness, but as a cosmic law of mutual release. Every translation you have ever heard softened this line into something safe. "Forgive us our sins, as we forgive those who sin against us," sounds like a moral transaction, a polite exchange of pardons between decent people. But Jesus did not speak in Greek, and he did not speak in the tidy, sanitized language later scribes used to make his teaching easier to swallow. He spoke Aramaic, and the word he chose, Khaubayn, comes from a root that has nothing to do with courtroom guilt. It comes from the image of thread, twisted, knotted, entangled thread, the kind that binds two things together, whether they want to stay connected or not. Picture a relationship that wounded you years ago. You said you forgave it. You moved on. You smiled at the person. You told yourself it was over. But somewhere in your chest, there is still a pull, a tightness, a thread that tugs the moment their name is mentioned. That thread is Khaubayn. It is not a sin sitting on a heavenly ledger waiting to be erased. It is a literal, energetic entanglement between you and another soul. And it does not dissolve just because you decided, intellectually, to let it go. This is why so many people who believe they have forgiven still feel drained around certain people, still flinch at certain memories, still repeat the same painful pattern in new relationships. Tihi knot was never untied. It was only ignored. Jesus understood something that modern psychology is only beginning to catch up to. Unresolved relational wounds do not disappear. They calcify, and they quietly shape every future connection until they are consciously released. This teaching sits inside what is recorded in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 6. Where Jesus delivers what we now call the Lord's Prayer. But strip away centuries of translation, and what remains is not a request for moral pardon. It is an instruction in energetic law. Jesus was not asking God to erase a checklist of wrongdoings. He was teaching his followers how to physically loosen the threads that keep them bound to old pain, old people, and old versions of themselves that can no longer move forward while still tied to the past. In a few moments, I am going to walk you through this together. A short, spoken practice built directly from what Jesus meant by Khaubayn. So stay with me, because this is where the teaching stops being information and starts becoming release. But first, you need to understand the second half of the equation, because this is the part almost no one talks about. Jesus did not say the knots simply dissolve because you wish them away. He attached a condition, and it is the most uncomfortable part of the entire prayer. "Forgive us our Khaubayn, as we forgive those who are Khaubayn against us." The release is mutual, or it does not happen at all. You cannot demand to be untangled from your own binding threads while refusing to cut the threads you are holding on to in someone else. This is not a moral guilt trip. It is closer to a law of physics than a law of ethics. Think of two people connected by a knotted cord. If one person tugs and pulls to free themselves while gripping the other end tightly, nothing loosens. It only tightens further. Jesus was describing exactly this dynamic between souls. Your freedom and the other person's freedom are, energetically, tessamenot. You cannot selectively untie your side while clenching theirs. This is why holding a grudge against someone who hurt you does not punish them nearly as much as it punishes you. Every time you replay the offense, tighten the resentment, rehearse the injustice, you are pulling your side of the Khaubayn tighter, and the tension travels straight back into your own chest, your own sleep, your own nervous system. Jesus was not asking you to forgive for their sake. He was revealing that your own liberation depends entirely on your willingness to release theirs. This single shift changes what forgiveness actually is. It is not a gift you generously hand to someone who wronged you. It is a knot you personally untie. And the moment you do, both ends loosen theirs and yours, because they were never two separate cords. To begin with, if this teaching already feels this deep, imagine having a full guide with deeper explanations of Jesus' true teachings in Aramaic. You'll find the link to the study guide in the comments. And the best is yet to come. In the next chapters, you'll discover what could change everything for you. But right now, let's do what I promised. Close your eyes if you can, or simply soften your gaze, and speak these words as if Jesus himself were sitting across from you. A prayer to untangle the knots. Khaubayn. Abba, I bring you the threads I have been too afraid to name. I bring you the knot I tied around my own heart the day I was wounded, and the knot I have quietly wrapped around the one who wounded me. I do not fully understand how to untangle what feels so old and so tight, but I ask you now, Abba, to loosen what I cannot loosen alone. Let this Khaubayn dissolve between us, and let me walk lighter than I have in years. Say that prayer again later today, out loud, when no one is listening. Something shifts in the body when words like these are spoken rather than only thought, because Jesus understood that the tongue carries a different authority than the mind. Silent forgiveness stays theoretical. Spoken release becomes physical. Now here is what almost no one notices about this part of the Lord's Prayer. Jesus did not teach it as a private, individual exercise. He taught it as a communal practice, using the plural our and we throughout. This was never meant to be recited alone in isolation. It was designed to be spoken in community, in family, in relationship, because the knots we carry are almost never formed in solitude. They are formed between people. And Jesus knew that the untangling, too, had to happen in the context of relationship, even if that relationship now exists only in memory. This is also why Jesus placed this line in the very center of the prayer, sandwiched between asking for daily bread and asking for protection from temptation. Physical sustenance, relational freedom, and spiritual protection were treated as equally essential, equally daily needs. He was not describing forgiveness as a rare, dramatic event reserved for the worst betrayals of your life. He was describing it as maintenance, something the soul requires as regularly as food, because knots form constantly in small wales, in traffic, in arguments, in disappointments, and if they are not addressed daily, they accumulate into the deep, calcified bindings that quietly govern a person's entire adult life. Think now about the relationships in your life that still carry tension, even the small ones. The friend who never apologized. The parent who never understood you. The version of yourself you have never forgiven for the mistakes made 10 years ago. Jesus was not only describing knots between you and other people, he was describing the knot between you and your own past self. And this one is often the tightest of all. Self-Khaubayn is rarely discussed, yet it may be the most common form of entanglement in existence. You replay the decision you regret. You rehearse the version of the conversation where you said the right thing instead of the wrong thing. You keep a silent ledger against yourself, one Jesus never asked you to keep. If the law of mutual release is real, then it must also apply internally, because you cannot demand freedom from others while refusing to release the person you used to be. This reframes an entire category of suffering that many people mistake for humility. Constant self-criticism is not spiritual discipline. It is an unreleased knot, tightened daily by repetition, and Jesus' teaching on Khaubayn applies to it with the same force it applies to any grudge held against another person. The thread between your present self and your past self must be loosened the same way, spoken to the same way, and released the same way. There is a reason ancient Aramaic-speaking communities treated forgiveness as a physical practice rather than an abstract feeling. They understood, long before modern nervous system research existed, that unresolved relational pain lives in the body, not only the mind. A knot in the chest is not a metaphor to these communities. It is a felt, physiological reality, and Jesus' instruction to actively release Khaubayn was as practical as instructions about diet or rest. This is not poetry, it is protocol. Thank you for getting this far. If the awakening of consciousness is hitting you hard, it's a sign that you're ready to go deeper. The study guides are waiting for you in the pinned comments. The time has come to move beyond words and into practice, because understanding Khaubayn intellectually will change nothing if it does not become a daily rhythm in your life. Jesus did not leave his followers with a single prayer to recite once and forget. He left them with a pattern meant to be lived, repeated, and embodied until it reshaped the way they moved through the world. Here is the practice. Each morning, before you check a single message or speak a single word to another person, speak the word Khaubayn aloud 3 times. Slowly, while placing your hand over your chest. As you speak it, bring to mind one person, one memory, or one version of yourself that still holds a thread of tension against you. You do not need to resolve it fully. You only need to name it and consciously loosen your grip on it for that moment. Then, before you sleep, repeat the same practice once more, this time asking a simple, honest question. Did I tighten any new threads today? Perhaps a sharp word in traffic, a resentful thought toward a coworker, a silent judgment against yourself for a mistake. Speak Khaubayn again, and consciously choose to release what the day added, rather than letting it carry silently into tomorrow and calcify into something harder to untangle. This is not a religious performance, meant to be witnessed by others. It is closer to a physical stretch for the soul. Something done in private, consistently, the same way you would stretch a muscle that has been tense for years. Do not expect one recitation to dissolve a decade of resentment. Jesus described a law, not a magic formula, and laws work through consistency, not intensity. Over weeks, you may notice something shift. Conversations that once carried a subtle edge begin to feel lighter. Memories that once triggered a tightening in your chest begin to soften at the edges. This is the mutual release Jesus described, working exactly as he said it would, not because you forced forgiveness, but because you gave the knot daily permission to loosen rather than daily reasons to tighten. What you have just learned is not a private secret meant to end with you. Jesus taught in parables and public gatherings precisely because truths like this were meant to spread from person to person, loosening entire communities of the same inherited knots. If this teaching has shifted something in you today, consider who in your life is still carrying Khaubayn they do not have language for yet, and consider gently sharing what you have learned here. We are just scratching the surface of this ancient power. Get ready, because in our next video, I will reveal even deeper Aramaic codes that unlock spiritual authority you've never imagined. Make sure you are subscribed and have notifications turned on so you don't miss this unfolding revelation. Study guides with deeper teachings are waiting for you in the pinned comment below. With gratitude for walking this path together. Before you leave, if this message touched your heart, double watt restoration in the comments below. Your testimony may encourage someone else seeking healing. Thank you for sharing this moment of ancient wisdom with us. Walk in peace, walk in freedom, and walk in the power of